Welcome to the Marchand and Orand Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal. And this is week 8 of the pod and our special guest to talk about the new Premier League deal and his life. The always interesting, one of the biggest commentators in the country, but obviously in soccer, and that's Roger Bennett of Men in Blazers.
Here comes the magic spray.
The theme. I love that. That sounded good. I'm excited to get Raj on the pod here, Andrew.
Yeah, we'll talk to Raj in a little bit. We'll have that for you. But first, as we do each week, who's up? Who's down?
Who's up? Who's down?
John, who do you have as who's up?
Who's up? Dickie V.
Are you kidding me? Are you serious? That's a diaper dandy. He was in high school last year. Wow.
Oh, how can you not love that passion? That was a call from 2017. It was Kansas's Josh Jackson, who's now with the Pistons. And that was Vital calling him a diaper dandy. Well, Vital, he's 82. He's been with ESPN for 42 years. He's currently undergoing treatment for lymphoma. But this week, he returns to ESPN to call the Gonzaga UCLA game, and I'm going to tune in. I love listening to Vital. I can't get enough of him and his excitement, even if I think he likes Duke a little bit too much. But it's great to see him back. I know everyone hopes he's going to be around for a good long while. Welcome back, Dick.
Yeah, well, let me just say on Dickie V, the passion is just unbelievable in Dickie V for life. Not only for basketball, but for life. He wants to broadcast till he's 100, and Godspeed to him on his recovery and being back on the court this week to call games. It's great to see.
So, Andrew, who's up?
Who's up for me? It's Matt Hasselbeck of ESPN's NFL Countdown. Now, the job of the analyst is not just hot takes. It's to tell us stuff before it happens. And a few weeks ago, I wrote about this, that he said before the Patriots went on this mini run that they're on now in first place in the AFC East, he said, watch the Patriots. On that show, Teddy Bruschi, the former Patriots, like, I'm not so sure. And Hasselbeck said, you can see it coming. And now it's kind of in vogue. People are like, the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl. But Hasselbeck was before the curve. I remember years and years ago, Boomer Esiason did the same thing. That was even better, quite honestly. Yeah, when Boomer did it, that was when the Patriots went on to their first Super Bowl title back in 2002, and Boomer was way ahead of the curve. Hasselbeck, he is on the way up this week for having that really good opinion a few weeks ago. Let me take on the way down because I'm going to stay on ESPN Countdown. So my on the way down, or who's down, is Rex Ryan. Rex, a week or so ago, just went after Robert Saleh, the Jets coach, saying, don't compare me, and really making it personal with Saleh. All right, fine. Rex can do that. That's kind of what Rex does. Then Saleh and his brother went back a little bit at him. So the two of them, Rex Ryan and Robert Saleh, talked on the phone. And this week on Countdown, Rex Ryan says, Robert Saleh, the Jets, they have their man. I'm so impressed. So my problem with this is, look, your opinion should always evolve. In this show, I hope our opinions evolve. We get more information. We can change our opinion. We're not just stuck and we're only going to think this way. We want you to be surprised when you come to the program and, oh, I see something differently, of course. So maybe a little kudos for doing that, Rex, but maybe do a little research before you make it so personal. And I don't even know if anybody was making that comparison, Rex and Saleh. I didn't hear it. And I'm here following it as closely as you can, as you know, I don't cover the Jets as a fan per se. And I don't think people were saying that. Maybe a little bit you heard that, but not much. So on the way down, Rex Ryan. All right, John, who do you got?
Who's down? I've got Andrew Marchand, of course.
What?
Once again, a big U.S. rights deal comes up. And once again, Amazon's nowhere to be seen, Andrew. None of the digital companies were there to get the Premier League.
I'm looking at the rundown. Hold on. I am looking at the rundown. It did not say Andrew Marchand. It said Jeff Bezos, which I thought was
all right. It's Bezos. It's Bezos.
No, you can go with me. All right. Hold on. This goes back to our argument. We're trying to make these takes quick. This goes back to our argument that Amazon's not a. You say they're not a real big player. That doesn't mean.
Where were they? This is the biggest. You just put you put your column put the EPL as a major sport in America.
Yeah.
Wouldn't if they're going to be involved in sports, shouldn't they go after the biggest sport in America? They kick the tires. This is a company, Andrew. This is my who's down, so I'm going. This is a company that's worth more than $1 trillion, and it was outbid by Comcast, a company that Amazon could buy several times over. So my on the way down, I said it was you. It's really Jeff Bezos, but it should be all of the leagues, all of the conferences that have been begging Amazon to step up in a big way to bid up their rights when this company just isn't doing it.
Well, one thing, and then I'll let you have the final, comment. Peacock needed this. NBC needed this deal. I mean, you talk to a lot of other rival executives. They don't think it makes really financial sense, that the numbers are not going to add up to the subs or the transmission retrans fees for NBC, or cable fees for USA. It doesn't all add up. So because Amazon that doesn't mean they're going to do every deal that I've said they're one of the biggest stores for the next decade. They are, just because they have the NFL. So beyond, and we'll talk later. They got Al Michaels. They're going to get Al Michaels. I mean, they're a big deal. That said, that doesn't mean they have to do every deal. So again, I don't know. You can do Sinclair. You gave Sinclair a week off from not being who's down on your end.
Chris, next week, Chris Ripley's coming back.
All right, go ahead. Finish last comment on this one.
Look, all I hear from you are excuses. If they wanted it, they had the deep pockets to get it. They decided to be fiscally sound. But as you said, when they went into the NFL, you have to overpay in order to first get in there. And they didn't do it.
All right, John, topic 1. Sunday Night Football and what's going to happen in the future. Well, we get a little bit of a preview this Thursday night, Thanksgiving night. Mike Tirico and Drew Brees will be on the call for the Saints and the Bills. Then on Sunday night for Baltimore and Cleveland, it'll be Tirico and Collinsworth. Al Michaels off both days. I've reported 92%. Al Michaels is going to Amazon.
You're up from 90%. Last pod, it was 90%, Andrew.
The meter keeps rising.
Wow, interesting.
I could probably go 100, but you know what? It's nothing's official. The deal between NBC and Amazon is not official yet. What's going to happen next year is Amazon's going to have the exclusive rights to Sunday Night Football. NBC's lead producer, Fred Gaudelli, is going to do both Sunday Night Football and Thursday night exclusive coverage. Al Michaels is close with Gaudelli. I believe they're going to come as a package deal. And then the analyst is in question. That brings us to Sunday night. People kind of assuming that it's going to be Drew Brees with Tirico next year. I don't think so. I think it'll be Collinsworth next year, but Brees is on the on-deck circle. And Thursday night is a big spot for him because, yes, he's done Notre Dame, but the nation will kind of be focused on Brees as an analyst.
Yeah, NBC has been very strong about Chris Collinsworth. If Chris Collinsworth is not in the broadcast booth for Sunday Night Football next year, I'll be really surprised. But I do want to talk about Drew Brees for a second. Do you think he's done now basically half a season? Is he ready for the most watched primetime telecast 11 years running? I'm not sure if he is.
I'm going to say he is. Now, some people some people are listening after Thursday, so they'll have an opinion maybe. I'll say this. I watched his whole first game, and then I watched another full game later in the season and caught bits and pieces of his Notre Dame game. What I saw improvement and more confidence on the broadcast. Now, do I think he's fortunate that he did not go right to Monday night or Sunday Night Football to start? Yes, because there has been growth. But I do hear a guy who you can tell is into it, who is taking teaching and coaching and trying to improve and is into the game. But again, do I feel like he's going to have a Romo effect and everyone's going to say how he's the greatest thing ever on Thursday night? I don't, but I do think you hear someone who can at least be competent, not a Jason Witten type situation. Nothing against Witten. He really wasn't as bad as maybe people thought he was, but he was in such a spotlight game on Monday night that it became a trending topic every week. But I think Brees has shown the ability to potentially be a real number one at some point.
Well, let's talk about Collinsworth for a second. He is, in my mind, he's one of the top 2 analysts in the game right now. And having talked to people at NBC, it would be his decision whether or not he wants to leave. Why? For years now, we've been reading about him wanting to leave. Why is that?
Well, that Collinsworth wants to leave?
Yeah.
I don't know if he wants to leave.
No. We've been reading that he has a foot outside of the booth.
Oh, you mean like they might be pushing him out? You're
Yeah.
saying. Well, I think. Look, I think when you add Drew Brees, they're obviously, this is NBC's MO. They brought in Mike Tirico years and years ago. I think it was 2015, and the idea was he's replacing Bob Costas on the Olympics as the host and Al Michaels as the Sunday night main play-by-player, and that in fact did happen. You bring in Drew Brees. If Brees knocks it out of the park, I think it'll happen quicker. I don't think Brees has done that yet, and so it kind of comes down to how good they think Drew Brees is. I do think these networks want to get younger. They want to make sure they don't get in that Monday Night Football scenario that ESPN has gotten into, where they really haven't been able to find the main booth where they feel like this is it, and we got this for the next 10 years. And so I think NBC, they're not going to say, hey, we're going to replace Chris Collinsworth until they do. So I think Brees, if he's good enough, I think they'll make a transition. You know, Collinsworth, he's only in his early 60s, so he could do it for a while more. And, you know, they do have Notre Dame. Brees is on the pregame show. But I do think if I were Chris, I'd be looking a little over my shoulder, no matter what I'm told or you're told by NBC. He still has a couple more years on his contract, too.
This is in your wheelhouse, so I'm going to defer to you. I just know that people at NBC, they love Collinsworth. Collinsworth works well with them. He comes across well on screen. I don't think, unless Chris Collinsworth wants to leave, I don't see NBC moving him out of the booth anytime soon.
The big thing in all this, Al Michaels to Amazon, that's a huge thing. I mean, you can't keep acting like Amazon's not a big deal. They're going to have Al Michaels as their play-by-play guy next year. It's going to be a total focus of the NFL media season when Amazon has the exclusive rights to Thursday night. And with Al Michaels as the front man, they'll have some credibility right off the jump.
I'll give you this. Al Michaels is a big splash for Amazon's Thursday Night Football. Jared Stacey is putting together a really top-notch team. Who do you see them pairing Al with?
Yeah, I've written that, Jared Stacey, who's the head of production there at Amazon. I think the people that I've written for months now are Troy Aikman, Brees, and Collinsworth. And if I were to pick one who I think is the leading candidate, it's Aikman, just because I don't think Collinsworth's going to do double duty. I don't know if Amazon wants to, even though Brees isn't really associated with NBC yet, I'm not sure they want to do that as of yet. And I think Aikman likes the idea of doing Thursday and Sunday because he likes the idea of being paid for both those for one part. I think he hasn't found it too much
that
of a
helps.
too hard in terms of the workload. So that's what I probably see right now. But there is a mystery candidate if one of the big time coaches were to suddenly retire after this season, or a player comes out. But Al Michaels is only going to work with a certain tier of analysts, and so that makes the pool a little bit small.
So why would Fox be okay with allowing Troy Aikman to go over to Amazon for Thursday?
I just think financially it's good. If it's good for Troy and it doesn't impact what he does with them, I don't think they're going to have an issue with it.
They certainly are looking to make a splash. All of the names that you brought up, they're big splashes. We'll see who retires, but it's going to be something to look at for the next couple of months.
All right, we move to topic 2. Sunday Ticket. In my newsletter on Monday mornings, I wrote that a emerging dark horse is Discovery, Warner Media, that combination that's merging together. We saw the aggressive bid they made for the EPL. You look at it, if they do not get involved with Sunday Ticket, they're going to be boxed out of the NFL business for the next decade plus. And they're in a race with Amazon and ESPN Plus and all these others in the sports game. I still have ESPN Plus and Amazon as the favorites. You have to include Discovery / Warner Media. John Orand, your take.
My take is, look at what they did with the NHL. They surprised everybody and came in and got the NHL. With the Premier League, they surprised everybody and put in a really, really competitive bid. I mean, they can't now bid with Discovery. They're waiting for federal regulations to approve that to happen. But I think that I can actually see them as being a front runner in this for this reason. The NFL wants to increase the pie. ESPN already has an NFL relationship. Amazon already has an NFL relationship. They're trying to seed more companies to see what it's like to have the NFL. So that has Apple could be a possible destination. They have a sports division there, but they have no sports yet. Warner Media, they have no NFL relationship yet. So that's something that I'm really taking a look at. You and I both agree on DirecTV, at least on this round. I think Amazon has a really good shot at it. But yeah, I think that if the NFL follows what they've done before, they're going to try to get somebody that has no relationship with the NFL and try to get the Sunday Ticket over there.
All right, let's do two things here. Number one, I'm going to do the Francesa thing where you knew something before it happened, but actually I'm going to do it for you because I don't think you said it on the pod, but John did tell me a number before the EPL negotiations were concluded that he thought that Warner Media / Discovery was going to make a big bid. So you said surprise, but I don't think you were really surprised.
Shots!
Listen, I knew that. That's what you should be saying. If you were a big time New York sports radio personality, you'd be like, I knew about that. I couldn't say anything. But John actually did say that. You mentioned Apple. Is Apple a real player? Yes or no? I'm not looking for are they real players or not, in your opinion? Because I'm a no.
Well, let me define that question. Are they real players for Sunday Ticket?
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes.
Really? So you think Sunday Ticket?
They have Jim DiLorenzo overseeing a sports department. At some point, they're going to have to try to get sports. Will the NFL want to have them sort of test on them? Probably not. Do I think they're likely to get Sunday Ticket? No, they would be below all those other companies. But would they be kicking the tires? Yeah, I totally can see that happening.
Okay. And you also said we agreed on DirecTV. As people know who listen to this podcast, I do not like to agree with you on anything. So what do you mean by we agree on DirecTV? I think I know what you mean, but what do you define that for me, please?
We both feel that DirecTV is going to renew with the NFL, at least for this a bit of Sunday Ticket. It's existential to DirecTV to keep Sunday Ticket. I mean, can you imagine how many subscribers they would lose if they were just to give it up? So I see them staying for one more round, and I think you do as well.
Yeah, and I think also a big part of that is also the bars and restaurants. Could Amazon ESPN Plus, figure out how to get into those bars and restaurants and make it work? Maybe, but already works with the satellite TV. So that's where I think that they stay in for both sides. So
that's Andrew. That's a long and expensive process to do that.
Exactly. And then is it even worth it for any of the parties involved, the digital parties or the NFL, to really take on that potential headache? Last thing before we move on to our guest, Roger Bennett of Men in Blazers. You think that Discovery / Warner Media is the favorite? Because if so, then I'm really proud of my newsletter.
I know it sounded like I said that, but no.
Okay.
Here's what I can't figure out is
rewind.
We agree again. Bob Chapek has been, and all the ESPN executives have been very open that they want this package. You rarely see that. I mean, they want the package. They're going to make a big play to try to get the package. If they don't get the package, it's egg on Bob Chapek's face, right? He's been out there publicly saying that he wants it. So I would give ESPN the nod, and then your guys, Amazon. I think that they are really moving to try to do something.
So you think, listen, you have the head of Disney, can't have egg on his face. You think Jeff Bezos wanted, he can have egg on his face. Look, I think it's going to be interesting. All I know is the NFL is going to get richer.
Yeah, that's the easiest prediction to make. Absolutely.
Joining us now on the Big Get is Roger Bennett, and anybody who knows soccer knows Roger Bennett. He's one of the preeminent sports analysts in our country, but really obviously on soccer is what he is known for. England born, now an American citizen. Roger, we've had Jimmy Pitaro, ESPN chairman, on this podcast, Shaquille O'Neal, Bob Costas, but I got to tell you something, my kids, they were most impressed with Roger Bennett.
I'm also, it was slightly an overblown introduction, but for me to be with the two of you who have in such a short time just enshrined themselves as the Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski of American sports media analyst duos, the honor is all mine.
I'm Brady.
You can be Brady. I don't like Brady. I'll be Gronk 100 times out of 100.
Can I ask a question? How has it been becoming podcast duo sensations? Like, you've gone through the looking glass doing this. As you know, you are media analysts, but you become media superstars. How long before you're both just writing articles about yourself?
Well, I feel like I'm going to write about Marchand soon enough, right?
Yeah, I'm doing a long form on myself. It's really going well.
An expose.
Yeah, expose, exactly.
That's our Instagram feeds. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna have my salary. I just got it. I'm gonna break that story. My salary. People love numbers. They love the money stories. I'm gonna do a whole story about that.
Exclusive.
Yeah, the Post has learned. So that will be good. All right. The big news. Your company, one of your companies, you have a million companies.
You make it sound like I own them.
Yeah, I know. You work for them. You might as well. You're a big star. Listen,
when you were sitting with Brian Roberts,
yes.
Go ahead.
I said make it so. Yes.
When you gave them the envelope. All right. Your takeaways. I reported $2.76 billion for 6 years.
Is this your salary or are we talking about
it's
the
my
I'm
salary.
confused which conversation we're on here.
Yeah. Everyone write that 2.76 billion. I will not deny.
That was billion, not million.
No, billion. I will not deny it except when the IRS comes after me. So Rogers, listen, it's a huge deal. $2.7 billion for 6 years for the Premier League, Comcast, NBC, Peacock, the whole thing. What's your takeaway? What when I say those numbers and that length of contract for English football in America, what does this say about the sport and where we are?
It's a joy. I'm a boy from Liverpool who came to America in the early 1990s, right before the World Cup, 1994 World Cup, which was meant to put the sport over the top in this nation and turn us into football crazed human beings. It was meant to be an overnight success. Constantly we joke on Men in Blazers that we cover soccer, America's sport of the future, as it has been since 1972. And you look at those numbers and, from a network that partnered with the NHL for a long time, but clearly prioritized Premier League football over another major league or supposed major league American sport. And like my first response when the news broke was 6 more years. I felt like I was hearing Steve Kornacki call Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania for Rebecca Lowe. Like I was ecstatic for many reasons we can get into, because part of this is about the money. Part of this is a testament to the partnership and the perceived partnership from both sides, what the NBC bring to the Premier League, what the Premier League brings to NBC. But I was also just delighted because what NBC have done for the game in this country since they started with these rights has been deeply, deeply transformative. So relief and joy as both a fan and someone that covers the game in America.
Raj, you sound British. You are British, but you're a big Bears fan, Refrigerator Perry. Oh. You love the hometown Caps down here. I think you're a closet Wizards fan as well.
Bullets.
You know American sports. Is soccer a major sport in America?
The Premier League is undoubtedly in demo an important part, a critical part of the American media landscape. NBC certainly believes so. They have Sunday Night Football, they have the Kentucky Derby. They have a portfolio of elite sporting franchises, and I think the Premier League fits in beautifully and critically for them as they think about the Peacock strategy. Look, I mean, the future of sports broadcasting is about the streamers, and what the Premier League can deliver is a in demo young audience who are deeply, deeply committed. The days of broadcasting are outside of the NFL largely over, and it's about identifying audiences that are truly, madly, deeply, passionately connected to the sport, and the Premier League is most definitely one of them. NBC had the NHL, and they what's remarkable is there's a moment in American sports broadcasting where the Premier League has been seen as delivering more, as more of a priority, and I think it's a remarkable moment. I came here in the early 90s where football just could not be found. I adore America, as your question hints. I live for it. It's the greatest honor of my life to become American. But when I came here, if there was a big game in England, I had to phone my dad and have him hold the phone against the radio broadcast in England. You had 734 bloody cable channels. Not one of them showed English football. And we've come so far, so fast. And what NBC have done is transformed the way the game is broadcast. I think that's really crucial. We lived through 2006. I remember watching the World Cup on ESPN. I chose to dedicate a huge part of my life to broadcasting football when I heard the American broadcaster of the World Cup say, and the world's most famous footballer, Charlie Beckham, takes the field. I was like, oh my God, we can do better. We can do better. I started to write about how we can do better. And I remember a lot of American sports fans being, one in particular stayed with me, being like, listen, if baseball fans have to suffer through Joe Morgan, soccer fans can suffer through the kind of crap that's been doled out. But what NBC did was really transform the way the game's contextualized. Americans don't need to be talked down to. They don't need to be pandered. They truly do understand and love the game. I remember Fox once broadcast quite recently the Champions League final, and to try and cross over, they shot with their NFL team. I think about touchdowns are worth 7 points, but goals are worth only 1. And it was like as if aliens had landed and we were explaining the game to them. Americans don't need that, but they do need contextualization. Rebecca Lowe does it so brilliantly. We still get in our mailbag, a very active mailbag, a question like, what part of London is Newcastle in? And it's those kinds of recontextualizations, advantaging the viewer in deeply, deeply intelligent ways that NBC have done in their coverage, which is serious, deeply, deeply researched, deeply informed. I think ultimately, obviously, the Premier League made their decision for many, many reasons, but to keep partnering with that quality of product was a major part of it.
Yeah, the problem, Roger, with Chuck Beckham was he didn't bend the ball very well. That was the problem with.
Yeah,
for those of you, for our non-soccer listeners, obviously David Beckham is the player that the announcer that Roger.
I love yours though. You're describing Chuck Beckham as if he exists like the Roger Clinton of the Beckham brothers. I love that.
I know he doesn't exist. I know, but if Chuck Beckham, he was like a cross between Barkley and Beckham. He could have been the greatest commentator of all time.
Oh God!
And also another quick fact check here. Another quich fact check. Newcastle is in North London. So
yeah, it's north of the wall for Game of Thrones. But it's a ultimately, and you guys will understand this from a broadcasting perspective. NBC were the first to set the field where they understood the truths Americans need to know, which are mostly not about football. The American knowledge base does run so deep, the passionate insight of this audience here, but just the tweaks about English culture, English history, the past of the game. There is a void even in the diehards. They didn't see English football in the 1980s, the hooligan days, the 1990s, contextualizing that backstory, which if you exposed the American football fan to just the pure British television, there's a lot of givens that won't allow the audience to follow along. The way NBC do that dance has been really a thing that's transformed the broadcasting of the game in this nation.
Raj, I want to switch leagues on you. Do you have an MLS team?
Do I own an MLS team? I'm one of the few Americans not to own an MLS team. I'll be quite candid, but now I've found out what Marchand is paid. I'm gonna work with him, and we'll change that.
Charles Beckham is trying to get a team.
Yeah, Charles. You know what? I think Charles Beckham has a couple. Are you asking me if I support an MLS team? I'm a serious, objective journalist. I don't root for. The only teams I root for are the US women's national team, the US men's national team, and just by quirk of fate, Everton Football Club, who are like the Chicago Bears of the English Premier League. Just savage, just utterly. It's just always exciting to be utterly disappointed over and over and over. The Tracy Chapman.
Wait, right? Yeah, wait. You think they're the Chicago Bears? Come on, the Bears have been good.
Yeah, so with Everton.
I guess,
Funny
yeah,
enough,
back in the day, right.
when the Bears won the Super Bowl, Everton won the bloody league. It
Oh,
was
they
just,
did,
yeah,
86?
I did not know how good I had it. And it's all been wondrously almost downhill ever since then. And I wouldn't want it any other way. But enough about me. You're asking me, you're trying to pivot like a professional, John Orand, to ask me about the future of MLS. So let me let you get back there. Go on.
Go. You stole the next question. Should MLS feel good, bad, indifferent right now?
Wow, that is a so MLS, for those of you listening, is the American Domestic League, which is I remember having arguments with ESPN about 12 years ago. I had an argument with a really wonderful ESPN television executive who was like, the future of American soccer viewing taste is MLS. I was like, no, it's not. Americans love the best.
Roger, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
That sounded like a John Skipper imitation to me.
You know what? It wasn't. I will be candid. This was not a skipper. This is one of Skipper's then lieutenants who had inherited the soccer bug, because Skipper, at the time was running it and loved and was very bullish on the football. It was not Skipper. But I was in his office. I was like, Americans love the best. They'll gravitate to the best. The best is the Premier League. The best can change. It's changed in my lifetime. It was the Italian league when I grew up. English football was just a backwater. The tectonic plates underneath global football can change, and they do change, and you can hear them squeaking a little bit. But MLS is most certainly not the best. And the ESPN exec made the case. He's like, when a kid in Houston is going to wear a jersey, what's he going to wear? A Real Madrid jersey or a Houston Dynamo jersey? I was like, what, are you really asking me that question? And he answered, he's like, a Dynamo jersey. And the reality is, there's something fascinating about the Premier League. It's on in daytime. It doesn't compete with any of the American firmament of sports, which offers soccer very little breathing space in prime time. So the Premier League almost sneaks in. A lot of people laugh and call it the equivalent of Saturday morning cartoons, but for adults. You can also, I've always joked that if you go to a bar, start drinking on a Saturday at 7:30 a.m., you're deemed to have a social problem. But if you're in that same bar with that same Budweiser, and there's a television above your head playing Chelsea versus Leicester, you're a football fan. And we should never over exaggerate the extent that Americans love to have a legit excuse to daytime drink. But MLS is not in that early slot. It's going up against college football. It's going up against the NFL juggernaut, NBA. Very little bandwidth in there, and the quality of the game is let's just say it's not elite right now. It's growing and developing. It's not elite, and so I almost see it, and I'd love to know from you what its strength is. It has so much content to offer streamers. Like, I know that's a muscle that streamers love, and I think that's the content play that it's really banking on. But it's almost like saying MLB is doing this. How should we feel as the owner of the Pawtucket Red Sox or the Portland Sea Dogs? It's a very different operational reality. So I think the theory that the rising tide lifts all boats of football doesn't work, and I fear I speak to the Bundesliga, the German league, the people who run that. I speak to the Spanish league, the people that run that. They fear, this is what I can say, they fear their esteemed, deeply enshrined leagues being eaten alive in their own market and eroded over time by this massive, massive juggernaut, global powerhouse Premier League. And I think ultimately MLS will see this as an incredible threat. The success of the Premier League, it is possible in football to be eaten alive in your own backyard. The muscle of the Premier League globally is just that big.
I wrote this the other day, when I was saying with the NBC deal, soccer, if it hadn't already arrived as the fifth major sport or fourth, whatever you want to put it, it's arrived. It's official. We don't need to discuss it anymore. I couldn't care about it beforehand.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's done. But it's still the domestic league. For us to get there as a domestic league, we need to get Messi and Ronaldo in their prime, not as a retirement league. They probably need to stop expanding so much. But do you, again, for someone who understands the global game, do you see and understands the MLS, are we going to get there? Can, after the 26 World Cup, can we compete for whoever the Messi is of that time? Or is just the structure that they've created is just going to make these franchises worth a lot of money? The experience in the arena is great, but the actual TV sport is never going to, or at least in the next 20 years, is not going to get there.
You are asking, by the way, I love the part of this podcast where you say soccer is now you've enshrined it as one of the great American sports. I do not take that for granted. I adore that. That's an amazing moment that fills. I love America. I love soccer. I'm a boy from Liverpool. Soccer, football was a way with music that we explained ourselves to the world. And it was dark when I got here. Soccer was just not part of, I mean, it was despised, if I'm being honest, in many realms. And the fact that you've just said that, I just want to note, I do not take that for granted.
Hey, but I'm going to push back and say it's not actually soccer, it's the Premier League.
Yeah, I'd agree. And to be
you said earlier, yeah.
We have a World Cup coming here in 2026. The last World Cup was meant to put football over the top. It was, America was this barren wasteland, the final frontier, like space was for Captain Kirk. And FIFA thought that overnight, like I'm looking at a beer tankard from the 1994 World Cup on my desk. All these tchotchkes that came out that were meant to like make soccer happen. It didn't overnight. It has been a slow and steady growth. And so there's a couple of dynamics, and I may be telling you more than you want to know, in which case cut me off. But it's more complicated than just Premier League growing, MLS growing, but at a different pace. What's happened in the past 5 years is young American talent, 16, 17, 18-year-old, who've always been day class A in Europe. If you had the Argentinian player, Brazilian player, and American of the same talent, and you were a club, you'd never sign the American. They were always perceived to be lesser. They have shattered that stigma. Christian Pulisic shattered that stigma. There's a wave of young American talents who are now thriving in the biggest clubs in Europe. We used to marvel when we had the young American player playing against Barcelona, Juventus, or Chelsea. Now we have players starting for all of those teams who play for the American men's team. And that's a phenomenal moment. So you also have a talent drain from MLS. Last World Cup, we qualified 2014. MLS was overpaying to get the American stars, Clint Dempsey, Michael Bradley, Tim Howard eventually came back right after the World Cup. Josie Altidore came back before the World Cup. They were overpaying to bring this talent home. Now there's a natural order to football. Apex predators buy the best players from clubs at the B level, the C level. These young American players are being hoovered out of the United States for the first time in my lifetime. Secondly, American sports entrepreneurs. I mean, this is an amazing story also that we take for granted, but it is amazing. A third of the Premier League teams have American owners. American money is now not just investing in MLS, but my God, you look at Manchester United, you look at Liverpool Football Club, you look at Arsenal. I'm not sure Stan Kroenke knows that he owns Arsenal. It may just be a rounding error for the Kroenke empire. But my God, he owns Arsenal Football Club. American sports entrepreneurs are heavily staking bets on the Premier League. So American involvement in football, global football is on the men's side is happening massively in a way that it wasn't even a decade ago. The MLS question, I have to be bullish is the short answer. The World Cup in 2026 coming here, the amount of brand money that's going to be pouring in, the amount of marketing that will just absolutely. I think the 2026 World Cup will do what they hoped the 1994 World Cup would do. It didn't then. It's been a slow and steady race, but 2026 is going to be the biggest skate park kickboard for the sport that's ever been created, and it's going to be magnificent.
All right, Roger, let's get a little personal, get into a little bit more about you. All right, Thanksgiving, right? Your wife, Vanessa Kroll, her brother is Nick Kroll. Are you guys at the dinner table? You eating your turkey, you have your mashed potatoes, you got the whole thing. Is just competing joke after joke? What's that like? Give us a little.
My wife's very funny. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, well,
She's
your wife, I'm
hilarious.
sure, is hilarious, right?
Yes,
But I just know Nick. Vanessa, I'm sure, is
We're
hilarious.
going right to Nick.
So I love you. I understand what you're asking. Here's the reality: is that this Thanksgiving, and I don't want to get too emotional on your podcast, I am actually leaving to take my family to England for the first time since COVID began. I'm actually going to see my parents, my beautiful parents, for the first time in 2 years, and so there will be a Thanksgiving table, but it will be in Liverpool, England. And just the thought of it, I mean, so many families have been separated during COVID. I was last home on a shoot. I went to Anfield and Goodison Park and filmed there, and I actually filmed with my dad. We took a ferry on the River Mersey and took and taped a piece about the history of Liverpool. I had no idea, as the rest of the world did, that that would be the last time I would see them. But on this Thursday, I will be not in America, raising a turkey leg with my American family, but with my British family, and I cannot wait.
Wow, that's great. That's such a segue to the question I wanted to ask you. Fantastic book. Roger Bennett wrote a book called Reborn in the USA. I'm predisposed to liking this book because I love America. I lived in Britain when Casey Keller was the only American, Leicester City with the Walker's crisps on the on the shirt. And it's a coming of age story. And what struck me about this book, fantastic for Christmas, by the way, I'm totally serious, is, you know, you're brutally honest about when you were a real pill to your parents and you started to get some bad influences and you started to go off the straight and narrow. Why did you write that?
Why did I write a memoir? I wrote a memoir. Sports shut down, John, during COVID. My whole life is built around sports, not just football, soccer, but I adore American sports. The Chicago Bears, the White Sox, as you hit, the Bullets, the Wizards, the Caps. All of it shut down. Nature abhors a vacuum. It was a terrible time for the world, for this nation. I love America. I absolutely adore it. America. If you've seen movies about the north of England in the 1980s, the miners' strike, Dance Billy Elliot, and he had ballet dancing to help him survive. I didn't have those mad skills, and what helped me survive in Liverpool: deep unemployment, political ostracization, a heroin epidemic, very little hope when I was growing up, was American television shows, books, movies, and the sports, which just seemed larger than life, lived in color, filled with joy and hope, where we didn't have very much of either of those. And so it's the idea that I built my life around, just the joy of America. So to live here, I grew up with the Statue of Liberty and the Manhattan skyline crudely painted on my bedroom wall, and ended up moving here. And then to have lived that dream and then just experience the COVID nightmare, the Black Lives Matter summer, the toxicity of the last election cycle, the idea, which I've organized my life around, the child's idea of America and the reality, two very different things, obviously. And I just wanted to retrace my steps of how that idea was forged in my reality through the layers of culture, the Beastie Boys albums, the Chicago Bears Super Bowl winning season, the release of Tracy Chapman's debut album, which I have here on cassette in my hand as we speak, and to excavate it, almost like in a kid's fairy tale, retracing the breadcrumbs to understand the difference between that idea and that reality. That's why I wrote the book. Really to stay sane during COVID when sports stopped, to fill my time, but also to explore those themes. And the response to it, all I can say is it's been one of the most, it's a very personal book, as your question hints, John. The response to it has been just immensely humbling. To have I also think Americans love what new Americans love about America. And it's something that we need to, it's a time of challenge. It's a time of occasional chaos. And I think we all need to tap into especially Thanksgiving's a great time for it to tap into some of that love in this moment also.
I'm not kidding. The epilogue brought a tear to my eye because that's when you sort of wrapped everything all together. But you mentioned Tracy Chapman. You mentioned the Bears. You didn't mention the roast beef sandwich.
The Arby's roast beef sandwich that I thought was like.
When was the last time you had one, Raj?
That's very God. If I was awarding the Michelin stars as a 15-year-old, the question is how many would I have awarded that first Arby's that I walked into? When did I last have an Arby's sandwich is a great question. I can say right now I'm looking at when I wrote about Arby's, the Wall Street Journal did an extract from the book where I really again sang Arby's praises. When I first bit into an Arby's sandwich when I was 15 in the northern suburbs of Chicago, shout out to New Trier High School. It did taste of democracy and freedom, and I was ready to eat my fill. Arby's sent me a very generous, a beautiful note writing about how much, obviously, my book moved them. And they sent me a gift card for Arby's, which I'm now looking at. It's been on the corner of my desk for about 4 months, and I have not yet used it. But John, when I next see you, when I come down to DC,
me, absolutely.
We will imbibe together. Be amazing.
Well, Roger, listen, first off, have a very safe trip to England. And that sounds amazing. And very happy for you and your family that you get to see your parents again for the first time in a couple of years. That is, I know it was like for me after a year not seeing my parents, they're, not being able to see them. So that's very special. And we really do appreciate you joining us. I didn't know there's gonna be tears. I actually thought we were gonna laugh. We did laugh a lot, but I didn't know there were gonna be tears. I guess that's like a perfect podcast guest. There's tears, there's laughter, the whole thing.
And the tears only came out when I said the word 6 more years of Rebecca Lake. Just to be clear, everything else I was unbelievably
critically acclaimed. People really do like that. I've read things that people seem to really like Rebecca Lowe. And I actually think she does a very good job. But there are some out there who really, really like it.
There are some out there. Can I just say about Rebecca Lowe, what she does is, and it's what deeply, deeply intelligent human beings can do. They can take something unbelievably complex, rewrap it so it sounds simple and accessible. But the people who really know the subject matter realize just how deftly she's consistently doing that. And I, as someone that watches so much bloody football here and in England, where there's 100 human beings who are in her role, what she does and what she's done for the game in this nation, I cannot speak highly of enough. By the way, most of it's very, her brain is super sharp, but also working with her, you see how bloody hard she works, and she's never sat back and coasted, and the reality is that all of us want to grow the game in America. It needs that kind of hard work to take it next level. Never take it for granted. It's lovely to celebrate this incredible moment for the game in this nation with both of you blokes. And let's tell the people what they really want to hear, Marchand. Just catch them up on your own football career. Tell us, there's been a milestone this week.
Oh, I did. Listen, we have some outtakes here. Last Thursday, the Premier League deal came down, but the big news was against the defending champs in my co-ed league, I got on the board for the first time with a goal and a 2-0 win for Do It for Alex. One of our players is out with a knee injury.
Describe the goal. Just a goal?
Yeah. What do you want me to say? It was a goal. It was a tap in. It was a good run, a little tap in. Like kind of one of those Ronaldo, cheap goals. And I'll take it though. These guys are all in their 20s.
The best players in the world make it seem like the ball comes to them. And I didn't see the goal, but I will say, just the joy. I
will send you the video.
Just the joy it brings to you is ultimately, and this is what I truly say to all of our Men in Blazers listeners, all of the people who are reveling in the growth of football across this nation, the joy that's on your face, ultimately, that is what is important about sports and about football in particular. Is about experiencing that kind of joy in the moment and making memories with your team in this case. But I think particularly the Premier League fans in America who have come through the past 10 years of growth, we all take a joy in it. And that joy is about an awareness that we were a small group 15 years ago. It's now a surging fan base, and all of us are consciously making memories together with our kids, with our grandparents, with our friends along the way. And that's truly what's magnificent about sport. So Godspeed to you. Have a great Thanksgiving to both of you and your listeners. And thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey, Raj, thanks for coming on. Thrilled. And Gooners. Gooners.
John has, for those listening, John has the jersey out.
God
There we
love
go.
you.
Thanks.
John Orand, the king of pain. God bless.
Thanks a ton, man. Really,
Coach,
really appreciate that.
Anytime. It's lovely to be with you, to your success. By the way, the joy you both get out of this is also hilariously wonderful. It's what's really important. Have a good one, guys. Be safe. Carry
All right, thank
Peace,
you.
man. Take care.
All right, Roger Bennett. He was tremendous. I didn't know we were going to tear up, but he really did very touching, especially with going back to England to see his family for the first time in a couple of years because of the pandemic. John, let's get to the business side of it. What was your biggest takeaway?
I'm such a fan of his. I thought he was so good, but I was so interested in both you and him talking about soccer or EPL being one of the major sports. You went major sports to 5. I'm going to say there are 3 major sports in America: college and pro football, college and pro basketball, and baseball. And everything else is sort of sporadically relevant. And I think that the EPL, certainly it's competing now with the NHL. I mean, so if you consider the NHL to be major, if you want to expand it to 5 or 6, absolutely it's up there. But no EPL game in history on television has gotten more than 2 million viewers. And at some point that has to matter. Yeah,
we went into this podcast thinking you're going to be the nice guy and I was going to be the tough guy.
I know you're agreeing with everyone.
No, well, no, yeah, I'm just a nice guy. I'd say 5. I'd say there's 5 majors. You have to say there's 3. Insult the NHL. You get calls from Gary Bettman, from everybody, and you got to insult soccer. You got to. I mean, I think college basketball. I think you have it a little bit too high at this point. I mean, yes, the tournament's there, but it's kind of.
I lumped basketball and football together.
Fine, okay. Look, it's one of those arguments like LeBron versus Jordan. We could argue forever. Doesn't really matter. Everyone could have their opinion. But I do think when you talk about $2.76 billion over 6 years, that's a major sport. So I don't think you can really, disagree with that. All right. We finish up every week with our calls of the week.
Call of the week.
John, what do you got?
All right. My hometown, Washington, D.C. We claimed another title, Andrew. Let's hear Jen Hildreth's call of the Washington Spirit's game-winning goal on CBS.
Rodman, absolutely on fire. First stretch there in the second half, looking to light it up again. The header! Washington takes the lead! Hello, Kelly O'Hara!
Andrew, we're the District of Champions. We have the Caps winning the Stanley Cup in 2018, the Nats and the Mystics winning titles in 2019. Now the Spirit taking on the NWSL title on broadcast television, the District of Champions. I love it. I do.
Congrats to you. Congrats to the Spirit. And interesting, President Biden even gave him a shout out on Twitter, that's a big deal for the NWSL.
Well, the NWSL, such problems this season. They lost their commissioner. There's some allegations of abuse. The Spirit, in particular, the league had to step in, ban the coach in mid-season. Players publicly called for the owner to sell. They had to forfeit some games in the middle of the season. So for that team, they overcame adversity is a cliche. They overcame some adversity. I thought the result was great. First time a broadcast network has ever carried that league's championship game. And congrats to the Washington Spirit.
My call of the week, I go to Fox this week. They get my call of the week. They had the Carolina game in which Cam Newton had his first home game back with the Panthers, and they did a tremendous job. Mark Titleman was the producer on it. And what they did well was, the story was Cam Newton's first game back. They put a camera right behind Cam when he entered the field, and they just let it play. This is what it sounded like. You got to see it as well. It is what it sounded like.
Cam Newton about to be introduced to this crowd in Carolina. Here we go.
And so what's good about that is that too many times ESPN Monday Night Football. They try to make stories around other things. And this storyline, when the storyline is obvious and it's right in front of you, just tell it well. That's all you need to do. And actually, even every week, there's not always a Cam Newton returns to his, where he's the number one pick story, but there's always like an easy story to tell. And sometimes just take that easy story. And that's what Fox did there. They told it simply and they just mapped it out well. And so they get my call of the week.
That's hard because you really have to see it too. I was watching it. It was the game that we got here in DC because it involved the Washington football team. It really was impactful. Even the audio was good. That was a good pick. All
right. So that does it. First off, John, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving to you and your family and to everyone listening.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for staying till the end and listening, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week.